We begin tonight with a major political shakeup in San Diego County. After more than 2 decades in Congress, Republican Representative Darrell Issa says he will not seek re-election.
MAGA Mike Johnson is panicking as a member of the Republican Party has now switched parties.
I mean, one of the most dangerous political signals for a party in power isn't necessarily a poll, it's when its own members start heading for the exits. And right now, that's exactly what is happening inside the Republican Party. So we already know that dozens of Republican lawmakers have already announced that they will not seek re-election ahead of the 2026 midterms. Midterms, which, if you're asking someone like Rand Paul or Laura Ingraham, is set to be a disaster for Republicans.
About how worried are you that a split Republican Party will only mean losses in the midterm elections? How are you expecting the midterms to play out? And if you do lose the majority, doesn't that put the GOP behind the 8 ball in terms of getting anything done, in terms of your priorities?
I don't think a split party is the problem. I think high oil prices will be a problem. I think the 2026 elections already, we are behind the 8 ball as far as the electoral process. I think if you add in high gas prices, high oil prices, and if we are still bombing Iran with kinetic action, people don't want to call it war, but if there's still kinetic action that causes oil to be over $100, I think you're going to see a disastrous election.
Wow. All right, Senator, we'll be watching your work, certainly. Thanks very much.
But reports suggest that there are more than 30 GOP members that are stepping aside, a wave of departures that is far outpacing Democratic exits. In politics now, that type of exodus rarely happens by accident. With the midterms this year, 39 Republicans in Congress have said that they are not seeking re-election. And the latest departure comes from California Representative Darrell Issa. He revealed this past Friday that he will not run again after more than 2 decades on Capitol Hill.
County Supervisor Jim Desmond, formerly the mayor of San Marcos, had originally planned to run in the 49th district, which is represented by Democrat Mike Levin. But late today, which was the deadline to file candidacy, Desmond switched to the 48th. A congressional district which was recently redrawn to favor Democrats under Prop 50.
Running for Congress in the California's 48th district.
Jim Desmond's 11th hour switch to run in the district now held by Darrell Issa comes as Issa, while announcing his enthusiastic endorsement of Desmond, also announced his choice to step down, saying, quote, after a quarter century in Congress and before that a quarter century in business, it's the right time for a new chapter and new challenges.
The mounting GOP departures only add to the party's recent election setbacks. Republicans already suffered major losses this year with key contests, including special election defeats in Pennsylvania in February and, of course, in Texas back in January.
Looking at Texas, though, I mean, that should scare Republicans. That was the point that Ron DeSantis made in a post. You know, that seat, that state Senate seat, flipped. It was a district that the president won by 17 points, and the Republican had outspent the Democrat there 20-1. And still, you know, the Democrat took that seat. Ron DeSantis wrote, special elections are quirky, not necessarily projectable regarding a general election. That said, a swing of this magnitude is not something that can be dismissed. Republicans should be clear-eyed about the political environment heading into the midterms.
What are we talking about here? Okay, the average 2025-26 special election, Democrats are doing, get this, 12 points better. 12 points better than Kamala Harris did in 2024. You know, that was a state special election that happened in Texas on Saturday. If you look at the federal special elections, this 12 points is actually north of 15 points on average. I was looking back through the history books. This looks a whole heck of a lot like what we saw during the 2017-2018 cycle, where you saw these Democrats outperforming how Hillary Clinton did in 2016. And what did it forecast? It forecast a net gain of 40 seats for Democrats. And I remember back in Pennsylvania, remember there was that Southwestern, that was a congressional special election seat, but that was one in which the Democratic candidate was able to actually win a deeply red Republican district. And that, of course, foretold big Democratic gains come 2018.
Party insiders reporting that Trump's unpopular and chaotic war in Iran will further doom the GOP's midterm chances, hence why you see a lot of panicking across the board.
Well, we just had an important series of votes on the House floor. As you know, the War Powers Resolution failed. That is the right result. We are not at war. We have no intention of being at war.
and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
Now, well, warning signs don't come as dramatic as this. California Congressman Kevin Kelly announced that he is leaving the Republican Party and registering as an independent, a move that immediately tightens the already razor-thin Republican majority in the House. He said that he wants to serve as an independent voice, but, well, the political effect is unmistakable, right? Not even just the optics, but the departure reduces the number of registered Republicans in the chamber and makes it harder for the GOP to control votes. More than anything, I think it underscores a deeper problem for the Republican Party. See, when lawmakers begin distancing themselves from the party label itself, it signals anxiety about where that party is heading. Something we are seeing more and more of regarding the MAGA faction of the political party.
We're the ones who are putting our best and bravest at risk right now. And he says the Iranian people it's up to them to now sort of take the baton and like install new leadership. They have no guns. They're sheltering in place because we're bombing their country right now. How are they what is the plan for them to then take the baton and install a new leader? Mm-hmm. How are they going to do that with the IRGC still intact and there still being Iranian leaders? Not everybody was wiped out. And his comments to the press today seem to be, they're going to lay down their arms and join with the Iranian patriots.
No, they're not. It clearly must be aware of the declining approval ratings, the difficult re-election environments, and the internal party dysfunction that we can all see. And in this case, several Republican lawmakers have both privately and publicly described frustration with the Trump White House and its treatment of members of Congress. One GOP member reportedly is on record saying that the morale in the party has, quote, never been lower. Yeah, that's not opposition rhetoric. That's coming from inside the party itself.
A new poll shows 60% disapproval of Trump, and this is just ahead of his State of the Union address, which is tomorrow. Guy Benson joining me now. Guy, what does he have to say tomorrow to swing voters kind of in his favor?
Well, Stuart, I think it's going to be a hard thing to do just because, as we've seen in recent years, it's kind of a self-selecting pool that watches these things at this point. So he'll have a lot of his own supporters tuned in. So I'd imagine to some extent it'll be preaching to the choir. There are people who are curious or barely follow politics who will get at least bits and pieces of it. That's the key audience, politically speaking, because you and I have said this before. We'll probably keep talking about it for months. When people start to feel a better economy, things could start getting better for the Republican Party. Unless and until that happens, it's going to be tough sledding like this, pun intended with the blizzard in New York, because President Trump needs to not just tell people that things are getting better, they need to understand it on a very personal level.
The danger for Trump isn't just the number of Republicans leaving, it's what those departures signal. And the fact that it coincides with how the American people are feeling. I mean, take the decision to switch from a Republican to an independent. That kind of mirrors Trump's dire polling with independents who are more and more likely to side with Democrats, as we have seen throughout the special elections this year.
The weakest that Donald Trump has ever been with independents. Look at this drop. We've been talking about it the past few months. At this point, a year ago, Donald Trump was at minus 13 points. Look at this. Minus 47 points among independents, the lowest Donald Trump has ever been in either of his two terms as president with independents. That is driving these numbers. When you're 47 points underwater with independents, that's the name of the game. You can't be above water overall. And that's why Donald Trump is near record lows overall and the lowest he's ever been going into a State of the Union address.
Vance, so we just mentioned the midterms. I want to just put up a poll. This shows congressional vote preference. This was at the end of January, so just a few weeks ago. Of all voters, Democratic candidate preference at 52, GOP candidate at 46. We've got a long way to go, but obviously that number would not be good for the majority.
More and more Americans are waking up to the disaster unfolding in front of them. Aside from the fact that Trump is underwater on countless issues such as immigration and the economy, after yet another dire jobs report, one of the worst since the pandemic regarding jobs lost. But his Iran war is resulting in soaring gas prices, adding to the economic anxiety felt across America.
Along Iran's southern coast, the Strait of Hormuz is at a virtual standstill due to the threat of attacks. That has led to a nearly 50-cent surge in U.S. gas prices in just the past week, and drivers are starting to take notice.
It was quite a bit higher than what I was expecting. It's crazy high.
Between my husband's truck and my car, we're well over $300 a month in gas.
At work, I make around like $18 an hour, and that's not even a full tank. It's like 2 hours at work is one tank. All my money has been going to gas.
Today was kind of a big sticker shock.
It's getting tougher and tougher to live.
And I mean, listen, I have to say this. If there's one president that can weather bad headlines and even worse polling, it's Donald Trump. We have seen that time and time again. I'm never going to take these numbers as a sign that he's on his way out. But losing the confidence of his own party as more and more Republicans begin stepping aside in large numbers, that is worth noting, right? Especially in an election year, because as we approach the midterms, the margins are so thin and there is everything at stake. If Democrats fail to regain control of the House, then Trump will continue to wreak havoc free from reprieve. Sure, the Supreme Court can slow him down in certain issues, but since when has Trump ever taken no for an answer? Tariffs 2.0 are already taking effect, and he'll continue with his wars without congressional approval. And yes, he will look for ways to run again. Constitution be damned. That is why this is so important of a year.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.